Welcome, everyone. I'd just like to take a moment to welcome our wonderful global audience who are joining us today for a very, very special session that we have put together on this weekend of the Global Days of Unity with UPLIFT. And this session is come together incredibly well. It's a great honor and privilege to have the co-creators of the Thrive movie with us today, and some of the amazing visionaries who are part of that movie joining us for a deep discussion. We're going to take it a little bit deep today, and the theme is co-creating a new future, which is really what the Thrive movie is about. What's available for us right now as a global collective to actually move forward into a sustainable world. Inventions, technologies, resonance. It's going to be a great session. And even more so, it's just very mystical, we say, that this session is happening on the solstice. And the solstice actually means the still point where the sun stands still. So it's the still point between the light and the dark. And the still point is one of the themes that is presented in the Thrive movie. So we'll dive deep into that today as well. So thank you for joining us. And I'd like to take a moment to welcome now the presenters who are joining us today. I'd like to introduce first Kimberly Carter Gamble. She's the producer, director, and co-creator of the Thrive movie. Kimberly is the founder and CEO of Clear Compass Media, the Thrive Movement International, and Thrive On. Kimberly is an amazing, amazing visionary who is committed to uplifting humanity. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Next, I'd like to introduce Foster Gamble, who is the researcher and co-creator of the Thrive movies. Foster has dedicated his life to finding solutions that can help humanity thrive. Welcome, Foster. Next, I'd like to introduce Mitra Politi, an intuitive healer, trusted spiritual guide, and author. He is the spiritual director for Rhythmia Life Enhancement Center in Costa Rica, where he offers guided retreats online and in person. Welcome.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having us.
It's so lovely to have you here all the way from Costa Rica today. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Next, I'd like to introduce Kelly Brogan, Dr. Kelly Brogan, MD. She's a non-pharmaceutical holistic psychiatrist and New York Times best-selling author. Kelly specializes in root cause resolution approach to psychiatric syndromes and symptoms. It's a lot of sims for me there. Thank you, Kelly. So wonderful to have you here with us today. Your work is amazing work, amazing work.
Thank you. It's an honor to be in this company. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce a dear old friend, Marshall Lefferts, the board member of the Resonance Science Foundation and associate producer for the Thrive movie. Marshall is a deep researcher in the field of cosmometry, which is the connection between cosmic geometry, unified physics, and music. Great to have you here, Marshall. Thanks for joining.
Oh, it's a joy to be here. Thank you so much, Chris, and everybody. It's a joy to be here with you all. Thank you.
And next we have Darpan. Darpan is a dear friend from Byron Bay area, where I currently live as well. Darpan is a neo-shaman and urban mystic. He travels extensively around the world, delivering concerts, sound healing seminars, and shamanic retreats, and currently traveling extensively around the world on Zoom. Great to have you here, Darpan.
Thank you. Good to be here, Chris.
And last but not least, my dear, dear brother, Manose, who is a maestro of the Nepalese flute, the bansuri. And he's a great hartist. Yeah, we like to call him a hartist because he's a true musician, an artist who brings forth his work by uplifting the heart through music, a true hartist. Welcome, Manose. Great to have you here.
Namaste. What an honor. What an honor.
So we'd like to start today by the Thrive movie is just this incredible deep dive, if you like, this inquiry into what's really available for us as humanity to really create a thriving world. And it's, if you haven't seen the movie, I just totally recommend you having a look. And we're going to start today by playing the Thrive trailer, just to give you a little sense of where we're going to go with this discussion. So we're going to line that up.
Story we've heard so many times, it's rarely questioned. It says we live in a finite, disconnected universe, that nature is to be dominated. Starvation and poverty are inevitable. There are rulers and those who are ruled. That our bodies are simply machines. That events are random. And we have no control over our own reality. This is the story we've heard 1,000 times. But what if it's all a lie? A lie designed to keep us disconnected, disillusioned, defeated, and down. What if the universe is alive? What if we could access free, limitless energy?
The background energy of everything around us is full of power.
What if we could cure cancer?
After 9 weeks, my tumor was completely gone.
What if we could expand consciousness?
Consciousness is information. It has a pattern to it.
What if we could liberate the world?
Some people have the idea that if something is legal, it's moral.
Morality doesn't work that way. If it's wrong for me and him and him and him and him and him, it's wrong for anybody, including government.
From the creators of Thrive one of the most widely seen documentaries in history.
I'm Kimberly Gamble.
And I'm Foster Gamble.
Comes a film like no other.
Virtually every solution we found has been made illegal or suppressed.
Their agenda is not a thriving world for everyone, but global control by an elite few.
That rewrites the story by revealing the fundamental fabric that empowers and connects us all.
There's a huge change that happens in the civilization when they finally understand that there's a fundamental field that they're bathing in and that they can access it.
We're very, very close to a true unified theory that is backed by consistent, relatable mathematics.
We heard from over 1,000 innovators from all over the world.
Our attention shifted from possibilities to results.
The test is successful.
The ability to tap the potential of the field is what gives us the evolutionary edge that our ancestors never had. The edge to not only survive, but to thrive.
When millions of people say, we're not going to do this anymore, that can end entire empires without firing a shot.
Is there something that we're not aware of yet, the knowing of which would actually transform the quality of life on Earth and have us thriving? Let's find out.
Thrive 2. This is what it takes. Launching globally 2020.
Wow, so amazing. You know, the word that came up in that trailer, which after seeing the movie, which really made me feel how you've dedicated your life to this path of really just bringing forward these inventions and new technologies and highlighting some of these great visionaries. You know, the word fearless. I mean, Foster and Kimberly, I'd just love you to share a little bit at first about the movie and you know, it's so amazingly perfect for this 2020 big global reset moment. Can you share a little thoughts just about the movie and what's happened since the movie? I'd love to hear from you. Kimberly, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's fun to see that again. Really, Thrive 2 was born out of the experience of just being exposed to so many fabulous innovations and inventors and psychics, philosophers, doctors, engineers, like people all over the world who contacted us. And when we had a chance to check out some of what they exposed us to and realized the number of fabulous solutions that exist right now on the planet, we just kind of thought we can't be the only ones who know this. And we realized we heard from this person and that person, and they would have no way of knowing each other if we didn't make a connection. And that's when we put together these teams of people and traveled around and helped create these connections that we highlight in Thrive 2. And that's the tip of the iceberg. And the intention was to share the joy and share the possibility, and especially to up-level people's sense of what's possible so they stop settling for less.
Amazing. Foster, would you like to share a few words?
Sure. The best part of the entire making of the movie is represented right on the screen today. It's the human beings that we got to meet who are, out of their own hard work, creativity, and courage, bringing forth the solutions to every single major problem that we've seen on the planet. And that's when Kimberly and I saw that was already existing on planet Earth. We decided, okay, we have to make the film. We were never planning on making a second film. That was a bigger challenge than we wanted to take on again. But as people are feeling so kind of confused and helpless and hopeless with what we saw, we got a glimpse of the future of humanity. And we realized, okay, we need to share this with the world because we already have what it takes to thrive. So it's been an absolute joy to get to tell that story to the world. And that's the feedback we're getting now, is that people see it and they feel proud to be human again. They feel grounded hope.
Wow, I love it. Hope is a very important thing to inspire right now for all of us. And I just want to mention to the global audience right now that this is not a one-way discussion for you. We're having an open community discussion. So we're actually inviting you all to please, if you get inspired during this session, please send us your questions on Facebook. And if you're watching Facebook or even on YouTube, and we'll be asking the questions live. We'll have this interactive community discussion right now. And we've got some questions already that came in, and we'd like to start. Let's have a look here. So this question, this is an interesting question. This question from Jonathan from Melbourne, Australia. Hi, Jonathan, if you're watching. If we are all connected by a unified field, is it even possible for humanity to break through to a more conscious state, given that the dominant paradigm for centuries has been one of fear and separation? I'd like to let Kimberly, I think it'd be great if you could start this one. We'll start with you.
Well, I think that, I guess my take on that is that really there's been a dominant, the dominant mirror through which we've seen ourselves is very distorted, but it's held up to us by very few controlled sort of portals that we look to for a reflection of who are we and how are we doing. And in that we miss out on and are frequently, distracted from the knowing that we have inside and actually experience with one another. So I think that the reason that I believe it's possible is because I believe that there is a life force that is always in the direction of thriving, always moving toward greater light and life expression, and that we are that. And so by understanding that we are the field, then part of the intention with Thrive 2 was to have it be a visceral experience for people to like Foster said, have them fall in love with the unified field so that they realize that through that they can fall in love with themselves. Because we are lovable, capable people here on the planet. The earth wants to be thriving. And so I think it's a matter of moving away from this distorted mirror that we've been shown and recognizing what we already know with the solutions that we already have. And there are just that many more waiting to be created from that state.
Thank you. That's great. Mitra, what do you feel about that question? I mean, given that, so many millennia of separation and fear has been sort of hardwired in a way now into us, just part of the paradigm. What do you think about that question?
Well, there is within the collective consciousness, there is different ripples, different layers of it, and it's very important what we are choosing to connect to. Of course, the fear is there, this frequency of fear is there, but there is also other frequencies. So it is important that we are studying that frequency, the positive frequency within ourselves, and then we can tap into that on a collective level. And that have ripples. When we are rooted in the goodness in us, we are also helping humanity to get rooted in the frequency of goodness for the whole.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to add one thing from Mitra has a beautiful book called Insights Path. It's Steps to Truth. Anyway, I love this book. Mitra's been a super valuable teacher for me, but I just want to quote something from the book that's really relevant. One of the passages says, accepting the essence of myself is to accept the essence of life itself. And I really feel like that's relevant here. It's all one process.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Kelly, what would you like to share some thoughts on that question?
Sure, I love this conversation. This is my favorite topic. I often reflect on how it is that change can happen, because I've seen it happen so many times in the lives of my patients and those who have healed themselves from the incurable, but also from the mundane challenges that our bodies seem to present to us. And in this adversarial dynamic we often adopt for the reasons that Kimberly was suggesting with our own organism, right? And, a miracle is something that can't be explained by your current state of consciousness, right? By your current mindset. And so a new one has to be developed and nurtured to accommodate something that can't be explained by the framework of existence that you were inhabiting previously. And so I've found that it just takes one disruptive experience. That's all. It can even be a moment where it's like a glitch, in the matrix, so to speak. And that experience, that lived experience, is what opens up new paradigms of consciousness, and it becomes irrepressible from that point onward. There is no going back. There's no unseeing. There's no unknowing. And so I have found that, in the health and medicine realm, that it just takes one, sometimes minor experience of how your attention and intention can translate to changes in the way you're inhabiting your body, to changes in evolution of your so-called symptoms, for you to start to question whether it ever was the case that you needed anything outside of yourself in order to learn how to be healthy, learn how to feel empowered around your experience of your own body. And so I do think that's how this change will happen, that we each are beginning to touch down in these seemingly inexplicable moments of human experience that require us to expand into higher levels of consciousness, and it's happening on the collective level.
Wonderful, thank you. Manose, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that question.
Oh my God, I don't have much to say. It's for me, it's all about silence. When I play my music, that's what I've learned, how to access to that power of silence, the song of silence. So, practicing for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, finding that place that grace can flow. Could be your work, could be your whatever you do. So for me, yes, it's that's simple. Finding that place of that palpable silence.
Thank you, Manose. Foster, I'd love to hear your thoughts for this first question of the day. Of I can see where Jonathan's coming from. We're all connected by this unified field, and the paradigm has been fear and separation for eons. So how do we even begin to get that to change for people, or for humanity?
Well, I think that as we're all striving to become more conscious, a friend of mine encourages me and others to ask myself, what am I actually becoming more conscious of? Is it just 1,000-petaled lotuses and bliss states and so forth? That's great, but then what do we take that into? And that's what we tried to portray in Thrive, is that each person on this call right now, and Manose is doing it with the music, and Kelly's doing it with the healing, and Mitra's doing it with the healing, and Marshall is doing it with the cosmometry and the physics and so forth. And the beauty to me is that we're all finding each other based not on politics or nationality or gender or race or whatever, but based on principles. And what's the core principle that's bringing us together? And I think it's integrity. It's being one with the whole, with the field, with ourselves, but then also honoring that in each person. And that's my major exploration these days, is how do you take that into human self-organization so that the sovereignty of each individual is honored without anyone assuming a right to rule over other people? Because I think that's what's been missing, is a universal morality by which we can actually all agree. When Kimberly and I've been traveling around the world, the only thing we found that everybody agrees to is that nobody wants to be violated against their will. So just like the torus was like, most people didn't even know what a torus was a few years ago. And now people are realizing in all the different sciences, this is the fundamental pattern of sustainability at all scales. Well, I think the human version of that is that the principle of non-aggression, that no one is allowed to initiate force or fraud against anyone. I think that's the key we've been missing. So if we bring our unified consciousness into manifestation without violating anyone, then I think we can not only survive, but actually to thrive. And that's why we call our films that.
Wonderful. Darpan, are you feeling it as well? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Are you feeling in your world that you interact with or Foster called with the universal morality? I love that term, universal morality. Can you share some thoughts?
Well, I would agree with Manose that silence is the ultimate, and that just bridges the polarity gap of the duality experience that we have in everyday external life. However, having said that, we find ourselves in a unique point in the evolution of human consciousness, and I think we'd all agree that this is like unprecedented, and the opportunities that exist within that opportunity are unprecedented. So I like to look at the metaphor of puberty. Remember when we were kids and we had parents and we were told this is how the world runs, and we get given blueprints as to how to live and coexist with our friends and family and co-workers and students and just about life, and we're given certain rules, and we have a certain relationship to our parents, and it's all good and proper and serves its purpose as we grow, as we tend to grow up, basically. And then we come to puberty, and this really difficult, charged period that everyone passes through, where we have to reevaluate everything, where we have to look at things. We have to look at our relationship with our parents. Is it appropriate? Is it still serving what it's meant to do? And in most cases, of course, it's not, because our consciousness has grown beyond being a child, and we're growing up into being a responsible entity within the world of human beings. And I think that collectively we're going through a kind of, or the planet itself, Gaia herself, is going through a kind of a puberty, whereby all things, all systems are being disturbed or appear to be disturbed. I mean, look at what they call climate change. I mean, it's just, what is weather? Weather is emotions. Weather is change. So there's big emotional changes happening on the planet. It's being reflected in the changes in weather. There's all kinds of, we're at an end game politically, sociologically, economically, financially, end game. Any attempt to solve those problems from the old mindset seem to be doomed to an awful and protracted failure. And so we're being given the opportunity to jump outside of the box, but it requires responsibility. For us to grow up, we need to wake up and take dominion over ourselves as sovereign beings. And I think that's the process we're collectively going through. And certainly there is this dark agenda, being our parents, so to speak. Our old parents are still trying to establish their kind of dominion. And we, the people, are either accepting that reluctantly, as many people are, going, this doesn't feel right, but I'll go along anyway because I don't want to stick my head up and be, get it lopped off, or be criticized or be judged. But more and more people are willing to take that risk to say, like we did with mum and dad at 13 and 14, go, no, this is not right. I have my own ideas, I have my own opinions, and I need to honor those. And I need to establish myself as being separate, or if not separate, but as being an independent sovereign being compared to you. And I think we can collectively going through that. And of course, it brings up a lot of anger and a lot of anxiety and fear and readjustment and emotional charge. And I think that we're passing through this time on this planet right now. And with all the dark agendas that are going on with AI, the 5G/smart matrix that is being rolled out while we were all in lockdown, I'm not anti-technology. I think the way that the technology is being wielded and being controlled is the problem. The technology itself could free and liberate consciousness, as we know, as we've seen in this movie, Thrive On, which can absolutely liberate consciousness. So I think technology is our ally. It's not that we need to be Luddites and go back to the old Stone Age and how the tribes and the indigenous people did it then. No, we bring those principles of community, of tribe, of being together, but translate them into a high-tech, into a kind of a new modality. And I think this is the kind of tension that we're experiencing on the planet today, where various agendas are pushing to the max to gain the ascendancy. And there's a great polarization of the light and the dark at this time. And I think that it's absolutely essential that it is that way. It's like the alchemical crucible within which these forces, which seem to be opposite and seem to be very dynamic, are required for the incredible miracle of transformation of consciousness. It's like to create a diamond, you need to, get immense pressures operating, pressure, heat, time, hot, heat, cold, to produce this diamond. So just to sort of cut it back short again, I think that's what we're going through. I think that's a really positive thing, actually, as long as we keep aware and remain cognizant of the bigger picture of where this is all going. Then we can just actually breathe and let go and just simply say, I do not consent to those things that no longer resonate, to those things that have passed their use-by date. There's no need to go into anger and the kind of things that a child will do at puberty if you can avoid it. I mean, sometimes it's justifiable, and it's being evidenced everywhere all over the planet. Paris, Berlin, London, Spain at the moment. So, I mean, I think that it's good to take a big, deep breath and to come back to just keeping the bigger picture alive and just staying sovereign, so that you have the power to say, I do not consent, and not necessarily acquiesce to that which is being dished up in front of us. Yeah.
I like that, the diamond metaphor. It's like, so in a way that the centuries of fear and separation is the pressure, if you like, that raising the diamond body of humanity. So you can look at it that way. That's great.
Yes.
I'd like to hear from Marshall about this question. Marshall, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, Chris, you mentioned the word paradigm shift, and that relates to the worldview that we are collectively holding. And the question refers to the centuries of a perspective, a paradigm, a worldview that has held us in really a sense of disconnection, a sense of separation, a sense of scarcity and lack. And those are the drivers of the collective fear that it was referenced in the question. And there's a reason in Thrive 2 that the unified field is the foundation for all of the information that is being shared. And the reason is because that understanding from a scientific perspective allows us to realize in our mental, intellectual capacity, which we already know in our hearts and our spirits and our souls, that we are indeed unified with each other, with all of life, with the planet, with the universe, and that there's a scientific understanding of the vast abundance that is the true nature of our paradigm, of the actual paradigm of life itself. And bringing that perspective in at this time is what I believe allows us to address what that question is about. How is it possible to make a shift in the face of what feels like a big field of fear that's kind of held in a holding pattern in a way, when in fact we actually can, through understanding the scientific perspective and how it relates to our consciousness and our technologies and how we can restore our health and the health of the world through the unified field understanding, allows us to address not just the fear, but actually just to transcend that into a greater sense of the wholeness and integrity that we already are, the earth is, and that we share in the universal field. So I think that's just foundational to making that shift.
Thank you, Marsha. So beautifully said. We're going to move on to another question. This is a great discussion. I'm so loving it. This is amazing, amazing, amazing. So this question is from Janelle from Texas. Hi, Janelle. Thanks for tuning in today. If I am an antenna picking up energy, how do I stop or reduce picking up the negative and destructive energy patterns? I'd like to start with Kelly on that one.
I think of this phrase that's come to me recently a lot, remembering love, right? And I think that's so much of what we are in an experience of rediscovering individually through our different, encounters and seeming adversity. And, sometimes that looks like, how is it that you can say yes when reflexively, based on your traumas and programming, and personality, you would otherwise say no and lean away, right? How can you connect when you would otherwise err towards individuation, right? And use this concept of sovereignty to really generate divisiveness and separateness. But then sometimes it's, remembering love looks the opposite, How can you actually say that firm no when it would be easier, more convenient, and rock the boat less to just say yes, right? And so many of us have those people-pleasing habits, that obedient nature that we've been enculturated around, where we are very likely to self-betray and self-abandon and accept these intrusions, these invasions, particularly in the medical field, of our bodies, just to kind of go with the flow. And so that is why I think in the zeitgeist is this concept of boundaries as being very critical, right? It's that no, it's that, this is where I end and you begin. And there is a shadow, I think, to this concept of, one love, we're all one. And while that's very, very true in the deepest layer of our existential manifestation here, it's also the case that we require, as Foster said, that individuation to be intact. It's like cells, they require cell walls, right? And in fact, there are different cell types that need to be confined to the different cell tissues and organs. Otherwise, the organism as a whole is unwell. And so I do think that we are being invited to really deeply understand what our no looks like and to find ways to cultivate those boundaries. So when we're talking about negative energies, psychic attacks, when we're talking about, for me these days, to even be in society feels like an assault on my value system. To look around at other people, in masks, et cetera, it's very, very challenging for me. However, I have two choices. I can not be in society. I can create the boundary that way. That's a very valid choice, stay home. Or I can find a way to really generate that, kind of force field. And personally, that's a meditation I do every single morning, is I create this kind of bubble around myself and I decide what it's going to feel like. I decide what energies I'm going to infuse into that space and what, they're going to look and smell and feel like. And so I think, interpersonally, we're learning how to hold our own while still remaining connected with those we don't agree with. But it's also energetic. How in this world can we really cultivate the art of energetic protection of ourselves and our children and our pets and loved ones? And I don't think there's a universal answer. We're all going to find different ways to do that, but it is very possible. It's important for each of us to cultivate those practices.
Wow, that's fantastic. So when you're creating this boundary, for example, is it permeable? Are you still allowing yourself to send positive energy out, or what are you saying? Keep it quite tight?
That's a great question. I mean, my personal practice is that I infuse like this local area. I guess it would be, my aura. I infuse it with whatever it is that I want to share, right? So anyone who comes in contact with me on a Monday, that I program this space, they might feel, wow, like, surprising amounts of harmony or joy. Or this remembrance of love. But then I always put a mirror around it. And that's so that, I tend to be a bit of a lightning rod, controversy sometimes. And so that's so that anyone who doesn't need to see me doesn't see me, so there's, it's creative ways, I guess, to think about how to interact, but also remain protected.
Yeah, I love it. It's like taking your sovereignty and knowing, having a toolkit to work with as you're traveling through, because we get so affected. I mean, this 2020 year has been a year of, wow, so much fear and within the collective field. And, even the most conscious friends of mine, I've just watched go down the rabbit hole of which I would never have expected, just go down the rabbit hole of fear. And I've seen the split happen in the conscious communities, which I would never expected as well. So, Kimberly, what do you have to share about this question?
Well, I love it, and I really appreciate that, Kelly. I think about, well, when I got together with Foster, of course, it was my first introduction to the Taurus. Unlike Foster, I had not lived my whole life wondering what is the fundamental pattern of the universe that's used at every scale. And so when he introduced me to that, what caught my attention really was that it was a pattern that mastered being distinct and unified at the same time. And to me, that is the heart of the matter in every relationship, whether it's between any two entities, certainly in a couple relationship and also in our communities and in our greater world. That dynamic of distinct and unified, and the balance between those is that rhythmic, balanced interchange where silence and calm and harmony and all of those things actually live, and where we're invited to evolve ourselves. And that, it's Kelly has a fabulous book called Own Yourself that I highly recommend. And that concept really gets to this, because the what you described, Kelly, reminds me of a quote, and I don't remember who said it, and if anybody does, please chime in, but it's I keep the company of men, but my conversation is with God. And I think of that every morning, because I do the same thing. After my meditation, my prayer is I envision my day and how do I want to be in my day? in relation to whatever it is that I know might be there, and then that which will surprise me. And that relationship with self becomes such a valuable, interesting sort of challenge and opportunity every day to do the kind of self-correction, like the opportunity to get better at that every day, and to have conversations that are grounded in love, even as they are fiercely protective against invasion. There is very serious stuff going on that requires our action as well as our understanding, and how not to shift out of that loving sense that we are unified, and at the same time honor the distinction. And another quote I have is a little mantra in my office here. It says, I'm a friend of your soul and an enemy of your project. And that's very much speaks to the same thing for me, to remember on a soul level, we are one. And here in this manifestation on the planet, I honor my uniqueness and I recognize yours. And there may be ways that I'm going to need to claim sovereignty in the best sense of the word, which is that distinction.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's so profound. Thank you. We have some global community members joining us live now in the Zoom room. I'd like to invite Kathy Martens. Hi, Kathy.
Hello, hi.
And where are you from? Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm in Northern California, up in Trinity County.
Great. And what's your question today?
So jumping ahead to when we all wake up, I try to envision what the world could look like without government. And I'm very, very intrigued by what I've learned from Foster Kimberly about the Nonaggression, the concept of functioning within that paradigm. And I've been listening to Mark Rose about the idea of just no government. I just really have a hard time with all of my conditioning, picturing, how society can actually work. How we can organize without organizing old systems. So I need to picture. I'm having a hard time seeing the reality as much as I want to.
Can somebody repeat the question, because I wasn't able to hear?
Yeah.
Kathy. Okay, great.
I'm going to repeat the question. Well, thank you so much for sharing that question.
Thank
Kathy.
you.
So here's Kathy's question. I love the idea of no government, of humanity coming together around the non-aggression principle, but I'm struggling to see the picture of how humanity can organize without organizing. Seems like because of our programming, organization leads to government. How do we approach justice? Do we abandon all systems and structures of civilization? And how do we avoid the chaos? I struggle to picture this. Thank you, Kathy. Foster, would you like to start with that one? I think that'd be a great one to have your thoughts on.
Sure, I would love to. Hi, Kathy, and thanks for the question. Yeah, it's something that I've been spending the last 15 years envisioning, and it does take work to envision it because it's so not what we're brought up with. And I guess a simple way of saying it would be, imagine that all of the services that are provided today are still provided, except without the coercion and corruption, and much better than they're provided today. So they're all voluntary. You pay for what you want to pay for. And whether it's security or dispute resolution or insurance or whatever, you would choose your service based on their reliability, their reputation for not violating anyone, they're having good prices and good quality. And so it's not like you wouldn't have organization. It's almost tragic that we've come to associate government with organization. You know, if you absolutely had to get a package to your loved one who needed their medicines tomorrow morning, would you send it through the post office or would you use one of the private services? And imagine private independent services for all of those key things. So you would have organizations, you'd have businesses, but not government monitored, government intervened corporations. You would have associations and clubs and institutes and all of that, but it would be natural, voluntary self-organization where no one had a monopoly on force, a monopoly on a particular business, a monopoly on money. So it's actually almost impossible to imagine how great it could be. I'm hoping that later on, Darpan will give us a little vision of what that might feel like, because it takes some surrender into the immersion of it.
I'd like to say one thing to that also. Thank you, Foster, and thank you, Kathy, for the question. For me, the value in imagining this non-aggression principle is as a beacon. I think of all the things we've seen this last year alone, is that human beings are not going to agree. Good, smart people do not agree even on how to achieve what could be described as a shared vision. So it's time to recognize that this process where my team won, your team won, my team won, your team won, is dangerously unstable and leaves people like where we don't get to solve the problem because we're battling each other. And the notion of a principle of non-aggression based on true equal rights becomes the beacon then that we're aiming for, so that in our vision of a new world, it's not, oh good, I'll finally get everyone to go along with my view by hook or by crook, you know, like I'll make that happen one way or another, or I'll wish it into existence. Instead of that, we change what we're aiming for. And what we're aiming for is a way to live together without agreeing, but with complete accountability. And when you see that accountability is the thing missing, you know, just from start to finish, and saying that doesn't mean that we advocate snapping our fingers and it's all gone right now. And we do describe in Thrive 2 transition strategies to help empower people, empower decentralized, diverse solutions all over the place that break the stranglehold that goes from the money, corporations, governments, all sort of one group, and then people wondering what went wrong.
Thank you.
I'd like to share just a quick perspective on that question, because I think there's an important aspect of the question, Kathy, that shifting from what we perceive as government as a structure to beyond that, in a way, sort of eliminates the idea of having systems and organization that Foster also addressed, and that when we reference this into the nature of nature and the unified field, it's a very systemic, ongoing process, and it's got a hierarchy, it's got a holarchy, and there are obvious patterns that make it work very effectively. And when we embrace those patterns and the principles that they're derived from, then and apply that into a systemic process of governance that is also, on across scales, that empowers sovereignty across scales and the wholeness across scales, that systemic process would enable the kinds of things Foster and Kimberly were just describing to happen without this contrived authority structure, because you don't see a contrived authority structure in nature. And so by modeling that, I believe that's what can help realize and intellectually understand how that could even happen.
Thank you, Marshall.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy, for joining. We're going to move. We have quite a lot of questions coming in from the global audience. This is a very, this is a passionate passionate discussion we're having. So thank you, Kathy, for joining us. And next, we're going to invite Kerry Thompson, who's coming in live.
Hello.
Hi, Kerry. Where are you from today? Welcome.
So we're from Canada.
Canada, nice.
Yeah, we're in Code Red right now.
Code Red, okay. And what's your question for the day?
So we have a group of chiropractors, quite a few who are awake. And we were wondering, how do we go forward with our patients and in the best way for them? We've been muzzled. I don't know how much you know, but we've been muzzled to talk. We're not allowed to talk about the immune system. So what are your suggestions for the best way to move forward for the best results with our patients, basically?
Thank you for that question. Dr. Kelly, would you like to start with this one?
I love this question, and I've been a chiropractor wannabe for about a decade now. So I'm a huge fan and supporter of all of the vitalistic principles that chiropractors have pioneered for so long. And I have also witnessed, the struggle because of the truth that so many of you hold. And I think, I just actually spoke to a group of chiropractors recently, and we were talking about how I think the only thing you can do is engage as fiercely as possible your own authenticity. That's it. Because the currency of authenticity right now, it's like in a sea of lies, truth is this incredible beacon, right? And walking the walk of your value system, right? If you believe that the body does not make mistakes, and you believe, that there's nothing to be afraid of when it comes to symptoms, and that symptoms are you telling you about you, then how do you walk that walk? It's hard, right? Does that mean that you have a practice where, everyone has free choice about how to engage the protocols that are being imposed? Does that mean you have a practice where actually your perspective is the one that is represented and you create a field? I mean, this is how I practice, so that's my bias, right? I create a field based on my value system, and then the folks who resonate with that are attracted to the practice, and we synergize together to remind them of their own power. But I think what can sometimes happen when you've had such struggles as a profession to really practice the way that you are destined to practice is that you compromise. You compromise your authenticity, and you want to kind of like ride below the radar and please all the people, and you dilute this value system that otherwise, in upholding, you would not only create, this, I think, force field of protection. It's like the satyagraha that Gandhi talked about, that truth protection field. But also, of course, you make it easier for all of the other practitioners to really hold that line, and I think that's really what has to happen now is to fiercely step into your value system and hold it no matter what, no matter who you're going to offend, or no matter who you're going to, have to, potentially explain yourself to, or whatever, so that people can find safety in these vitalistic principles that chiropractors uphold so gracefully and powerfully.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's exactly how we were, there's so many restrictions on us, and it's like we're at the point where we're just saying, you know what, we're just going to run the practice with how we want to do it. We know the principle, and we have to walk it. We can't just talk it and stay under the radar. It's amazing. We talked to a bunch of chiropractors, and they're all saying, just stay under the radar. Don't get yourself. And so that really hit home, because it's time to, stand up and be a lighthouse, no matter
I'd
what.
like to add one thing to that also, Chris, if I may.
Please.
The early next year, we will be launching our new solutions hub, and that will give you the capacity to connect very quickly and efficiently with other freedom groups around the world or locally, but also you can create your own space. And this translates into 40 languages so far. And so that you can connect with other chiropractors, and you can coordinate actions that we call CMAs, or critical mass actions, because sometimes it's really useful, like Kelly was saying, to make sure that that the numbers are building. And sometimes it's useful to wait till you reach a critical mass, and then you come forward together when you know it's going to be a lot safer and a lot more powerful than just one or two people standing up and, you know, getting whack-a-mole.
Thank you. Mitra, would you like to share some thoughts on this question that was coming through?
Yes, definitely. As there is something that is very basic about the immune system, that we can refer to it not directly but still activate it, which is to elevate our general energy, our vitality. So if I refer to how to raise my vitality, I will influence the immune system without coming into any contradiction with what is being said. No. So to find a way how to still transmit what we want to transmit, but we can change a little bit the language, but to aim to more vitality for our patient, for our clients. And when they are doing that, they are already in goodness, their immune system is already stronger, and they can deal with what comes toward them. And we don't go into any conflicts. It's to be also to use our intelligence, to use ourselves as wise people, because we are guiding other people without going into a conflict, by to find another way to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Kerry. Oh, somebody's.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I feel also there's something about being an invitation to when we have our own clarity and the courage that's born from that, it becomes an invitation. And I know so I started out in Berkeley in the 60s as an activist, and sometimes I would have some older activist friends over when my kids were growing up, and I have one kid, and he said, you know, they don't make activism look very inviting. They're like kind of pissed off and burnt out and stuff from, you better make change look good, Mom, if you want to have us all grow into this and follow in your footsteps. And it really impacted me, the notion that we become an invitation in whatever it is that we're actually calling forth. And so if in your own courage, it's not afraid, it's simply born out of a clarity that there's a line there, and that you got into this, you spent all that time studying and developing this career. It means something to you. Even your question was, how do you serve the patients the best? How do you empower people? Like, that's what everybody here is about. How do we empower people to know their fabulous capacity? And I think when you represent it, it's one of the most powerful things you can do. And that, to me, is a huge part of why to really work on the love, which is the antidote to fear, from which we then become the invitation to what we're wanting.
Thank you, Kimberly. And thank you, Kerry. And I actually didn't catch your partner's name there.
Chris.
Kerry and Chris, thank you so much, and have a wonderful Christmas, and thanks for joining us today. We're going to move on with another question. Oh, this is a great one. This is a great question. Just a little bit of a different type of question here. What role does sound play in the unified field, and does the frequency of love have a sound? This is from Alex from San Francisco, and I think we'll start with Marshall here.
That's a fantastic question, a very deep and rich question, especially bringing in the aspect of love and the sound of love. I'll begin with, I think the sound of love is what we're doing right here. It's the sound of our voices expressing the truth as best as we can articulate it in any moment, from our hearts, from our minds. as to the nature of who we are and the nature of nature in the field. And as to how sound fits into the field, from my perspective, it's and as is presented in Thrive 2, sound is really the that which creates the form in the universe. It's that acoustical component that compresses. We hear sound because it's compressing the air around us in these waves that have frequency, and we can decode that frequency with our ears and our brains. And when you extend that principle of that acoustical component, it points in the direction that all of the form, all of the matter in the universe is actually a result of that process happening. It's a compression of the electromagnetic field of light that is then creating all the form. And this then speaks to how the relationship between sound and healing, how we can use sound to affect change in our biology, affect change in nature, using frequency and resonance. Sound has a profound impact because it is actually directly related to that which has created the form to begin with. And so it's just absolutely the essential component for our ability to tap into the field in a way that we can really put into service, as was demonstrated in some of the technologies in Thrive. And I think even in some ways, in a greater sense, like the music that Manose creates with David Matan, and the bringing of our voices into that harmonious state, when we resonate like that together, we are actually aligning with the field. Just simple as that. It's not that complex, really. And that's really I would say the profound nature of sound and our ability to tap into it in those kinds of ways.
Thank you, Marshall. It reminds me of, like, even in the Bible, in the beginning was the word, so it's like starting with a sound.
Right.
And even,
yes.
even the word resonate means oscillating at the same frequency as the source. So I love that. When you get to know what that word actually means, you're actually oscillating, you're vibrating with the source. That's right. Great. Thank you for sharing there. Manose, I would love to hear your thoughts on this question. Does the frequency of love have a sound? Well, you are the frequency of love, right? Present right there.
So much information. I'm overwhelmed with love. Thank you, guys. Sound. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. It talks about sound, no? There we go. For me, when Buddha was protected by his father, he was a prince. His father wanted to protect him from his father really wanted him not to see any suffering. So he made very tall walls all around his kingdom, Prince Buddha. And his name was Siddhartha, Prince Siddhartha. And when one day accidentally he stepped out of a palace, he see poor people. He see people are suffering, people are dying. His heart's broken. Like, oh, my father never told that people dies. Oh, my father never told me that people are poor. My father never told me that there is homeless people. So that triggers him to become a Buddha. He fell into the place of vairagya. There's a word called vairagya in Sanskrit. This basically means you want to go search for something. You want to renounce everything and go. And what he did, he went to the jungle and became Buddha. And I really, this point of my life, and I'm so grateful that I could be with you all. And the word Buddha said, "Apo Dipo Bhava." Apo Dipo Bhava. That's a really powerful message comes from Buddha. Be your own light. That's Buddha himself told. Be your own light. So for me, that sound, the amazing grace, how sweet that sound. Apo Dipo Bhava. So that's where I'm at, you know, and also what Foster and Kimberly and Marshall and all of you guys, what this amazing gift to humanity, this documentary. It's not a normal film. It's so much to offer there. So I'll put the Baba. Be your own light and do your own research and do your own and do it joyfully. Do it. This is so, we don't have much time. So that's all I can say. I'll put the Baba. Namaste.
Thank you so much. I'd like to hear from Darpan, another amazing musician as well, Darpan, that you are. What are your thoughts on that question from Alex from San Francisco?
Sound is vibration, and vibration is what keeps the intersecting multidimensional worlds that interpenetrate each other and all the systems of worlds and dimensions together. As you said, Chris, in the beginning was the word. In the more Sanskrit tradition, it was like Om, Om. And I think that sound is the source. Sound is ultimately creative. And if you look at the synesthesia of sound, where sound becomes vision, sound becomes all the other senses. And when you think about sound, I wonder if you've ever been curious to notice that you are always at the center of sound. It comes to you from every direction. And whenever you feel confused or upset or anxious, it's good just to take a moment, just stop and just feel and realize that you are always at the center of sound. And that sound is one of the most primordial energies, which then like light refracts into so many different colors. Sound can be refracted into so many different forms and dimensions and other senses. But I feel that sound is the absolute source. And so it has become central and paramount to most of the mystical and religious traditions in the world. You have nada brahma, brahma nada, like the sound of nothing. And you have, you know, the traditions of, as Marshall was saying, where, you know, when you come together and you come together as a group and you come to a coherence in frequency together, it's the fastest and most natural and most direct way to tap into the unified field, which is why we do come together in circle and why we celebrate with various songs and traditions around the world for precisely that purpose, because we are always at the center of sound. And sound emanates from us, and as ayahuasca shows us, sound becomes vision. So sound can become synesthetic and be transformed and transmuted into so many other forms of expression, the myriad 1,001 things that we experience in life. And so to me, sound is the absolute center, the source, and the primordial essence.
Thank you, Darpan. So beautifully said. We're going to move on to our next question. We're getting so many questions coming in now. We've got a very, very interactive global community here. So this is from Miranda, just came in on Facebook. When will the inventors who Kimberly and Foster have been working closely with and developing their energy inventions be disclosed and the inventions implemented? It's a great question because, you know, I mean, in the movie, there was also, you discussed and shared how many of these inventions over the centuries even have been, you know, people have been suppressed and some of the inventors even, you know, silenced and killed. So this is a great question. Foster, how would you like to share on that one?
Well, it's an amazing time. Just like humanity is on the turning point in so many ways, that's happening technologically also in terms of how we relate to the energy of the cosmos. And I just got a communication this morning from the inventor in Africa, and they have had a tremendous response, you can imagine, from around the world since Thrive 2 came out. And there are investors, there are licensees, there are purchasers, and they're already starting to ship devices. You know, it's a fledgling company at a very challenging time. It's hard to get the parts from different places around the world, but the money's coming in gradually to put together the manufacturing, and so that one is happening. The technology that we showed, the free hydrogen technology from Thailand, that inventor was just offered tens of millions of dollars and half ownership in a company to bring that out. One of the wealthiest people in the world sent vetting teams over there for 3 different weeks to check it out, and it all checked out. And so he was offered quite a generous offer to bring it out. And it's such an interesting time. The inventor is a very integrous person, and he did his due diligence on the person who made the offer. And this is an inventor who, is not sure they can keep the lights on in the lab every month. And he actually had to walk away from that deal because some things that he found out that the other person was involved in that did not feel like they carried the integrity that this technology needs. And so he actually walked away from that. So we're trying to get other investors and scientists to vet that technology, to get them over to Thailand to make this happen. It's a very challenging times in terms of COVID restrictions. So we're dealing with that, but they're all emerging. Just like the truth always has a way of coming out, these technologies which resonate with the field harmoniously and will transform people's lives. This is the time. They are now coming out. And one day soon, it'll be in a shop near you. Right now, you can make a deposit and put yourself in the queue for ordering these devices.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add about that, which is generally the way it works is the folks with the money send in the scientists and engineers to do the vetting separate from ours, so that you have several vetting teams to say, yes, this, withstands our due diligence and is real. And because of the COVID, it's, been crazily inhibited and restricted. But one of the other things that's emerging are a lot of decentralized cryptocurrencies and alternative ways to move resources, to actually move value around the planet, and especially to make it available for people who wouldn't qualify as accredited investors. But a lot of people with a little money is as good as a few people with a lot of money, right? And in fact, in many ways better, because investing in a solution like that feels so good. And if 50 cents is the equivalent to you of 5 million to somebody else, it's an energetic alignment with our values and with our vision of a future. And people developing those alternative blockchain currencies and ways to move value are also joining that particular configuration. So it's, it's constricted, it's dangerous, it's got all kinds of stuff that goes with it, just like we're experiencing in the health world. And it's happening. And everywhere there's a problem, there are people working on the most brilliant, innovative solutions, and especially the ways that the folks in the financial end of it are working together with the folks in the energy and the folks in the health and folks in consciousness, so that it's all, whatever is your piece, there's a place for it. And it combines with everybody else doing their piece. And that's the way it all happens.
Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you, Foster. Yeah, it's the big question, that we all sort of talk about is like, the military industrial complex is so much pressure. They've been keeping things hidden and, aside for so long. But like, what is the moment where it can all break through? Is it? The movie was very interesting. How you you highlighted the fear around it as well, like that inventor of the free energy device in Africa, how you had that, he didn't want to see you at some point, even though you were like trying to, like giving him so much support. I mean, are you noticing that a lot? Is that what's happening? And that must be an incredible journey to meet these people behind these closed doors and then bring it out to the world. I mean, has any backlash happened to both of you from the sort of powers that be, quote unquote?
We have had no threats or backlash as such. And in terms of the inventors, it's been such an honor to just travel around the world and meet these geniuses in the true sense of the word. They're literally tapping into the field. Very seldom are the best inventors even educated beyond high school, but they have all in one way or another, through prayer or meditation or near-death experiences, ET visitations, whatever, they've found some way to access the wisdom of the field itself, and then brought that forward into manifestation on this plane, and then gone through what almost every one of them is very wary, and understandably. They've been betrayed by investors, they've been betrayed and abused by governments, and so that story that we told in Africa was not an uncommon story at all, that we could go in with good intentions and resources to help this person, and he said right off the bat that he trusted us like no one else, and he wanted to work with us. But then some of the other people that he knew in Africa said, well, these white people from America, maybe they're just trying to take your technology. And, so it kind of triggered him for a little while, and we went back and forth. And ultimately, I just asked him, ask the same place in your heart that you asked to know this technology, and the field gave you this wisdom. Ask that source whether or not we're trustworthy. And he did. And in tears in his eyes, he came to us the next day and apologized. And then that's when he allowed us to do the full vetting on the technology. And then he came over here. So it's a beautiful story. But in each case, sticking with them and just loving them, just like they're doing with the field, with their technologies, is the technology is a manifestation of harmony. It's a manifestation of love. The most challenging part is not the technological part or the financial part. It's actually working out the human relationships such that they can sustain and create a runway so that these things can come out to the world.
Thank you. I love how you express that, like just bringing it back to love. That is such a, that is a place that just allows it to all emerge.
Well, the unified field itself, when we are in harmony with the field, that's when we're in love, and that's why it feels so good, and that's what everybody wants. And I want to take this moment while we're promoting fantastic books to say, people come to us all the time now after seeing Thrive 2 and go, wow, that made sense. Where can I find out more about what the unified field is and how it works? And fortunately, Marshall came out with a book last year called Cosmometry that he's been working on for years and years, that puts together the math and the physics and the geometry and the music, the key to it all, and then describes the applications in a way that I've never, ever seen. So please check out his website. I think it's cosmometry.org. Is that right, Marshall?
It's .com.
Cosmometry.com, and you can find out how to get the book there. It's just amazing and profusely illustrated.
Yeah.
Thank you,
it's true, because each of the people who we invited to help us represent Thrive offers something that really helps empower you, individuals, because we're here because of our belief and knowing in the capacity of individuals. When you know yourself, what is born of that is love. And that's the ultimate power. And so, Kelly's books really, but Own Yourself is one I highly recommended. And these are like gifts for the holidays. And it's the same way, really. Also, Mitra's book, to me, it's like a a book of the most empowering lullabies, calling me back again and again. I keep it by the bed, and it's just, it's posted in the chat, I'm sure. I just really recommend that. And we made it so Thrive, starting tomorrow, is giftable. So from thriveon.com, you can gift Thrive now, which is something that we wanted, but took some tech doing. So thanks to our team who made that possible. But having the books that are available from everybody here on this call, it's really the best way to celebrate the holidays or any other time of year, is to help people get to know themselves better and to find these tools for coming back into alignment with ourselves. So I'm grateful to you all, and I know that it's the same for us with the music that's offered. You know, Manose, the music that you brought into Thrive, and which we listen to all the time here, does take us into the still point from which all else is possible. And we thank you all for that. And we're really honored by the people that we've met in the course of making Thrive and just being alive at this most remarkable time, and especially on this most remarkable day as we're on the verge of these cosmic transformations.
Thank you, Kimberly. Wow, amazing. We have time for one more question. And this is a question, because it's our last question of the day. I'm going to go around and ask each of you the same question. It's one question that's come in from Julian from Birmingham, UK. So if each of you can go around and answer this one question: if you could name one essential thing that humanity needs to thrive, what would it be? Foster, would you like to start?
Yes, universal morality based on the non-aggression principle, where no one is allowed to initiate force or fraud against anyone else except in true self-defense.
Thank you. Darpan. Muted.
I would have to concur with Foster on that one. I believe that waking up is the key to just allow oneself to become one's own authority and share that with others, and the principle of ahimsa, which is do what you want, but do not harm anybody else. As long as you don't harm anybody else, in that sense, we don't need to have rules and regulations. Once people are realized that they're connected to the unified field, that all is one, that the web of life is absolutely a web and that we affect every part of it, and that we are connected on such a deep level, how could you possibly do harm to anybody else, knowing that it was harming yourself? So I think it's a raising of awareness, waking up, and the principle of ahimsa.
Thank you, Darpan. Kimberly.
Well, you know, we've thought a lot about that because every word is well chosen in a film. Yeah, and so I would have to say that for me, the non-aggression principle is really accountability. It's how to be true to ourselves in a fearless, accountable way, so that we can express the bounty of our capacity without ever violating anyone else or our beloved planet in the process. And I believe that the principle of that will guide us even as we are different in how we evolve, and even in our values. If we hold that, then it leaves room for all our differences, and that gives me great hope.
Thank you. Kelly.
Wow, I love these answers. They so resonate with my personal truth. I would just add shadow work. You know, I do believe that victimhood is the only human pathology, and that it is the consciousness of victimhood that perpetuates and propagates these hierarchical systems that we're all referencing as being, you know, very dangerous to sacred values that we look to uphold. And it also is responsible for the projection of the bad self out onto things like germs, onto things like, government, onto authorities, and the idealization of those entities as well, that splitting. So the only way that we can graduate into, as Darpan was speaking to, I have the same exact perspective on the initiation process that we are in collectively. The only way we can graduate to that mixed object psychology that allows us to see nuance and complexity is really through personal responsibility. How can we understand that we are responsible for ourselves and no one is responsible for our experience of ourselves? It really is the foundation of not only sovereignty principles, but also the discovery of the true power that each of us have. We've been told is only to be found outside of ourselves. So I do think that will be potentially one of the most corrective directions for us to go in, is to really get vigilant around how it is that we can heal our trauma, own the parts of ourselves that we would otherwise ignore, that are driving the car, called our personality, and really come into an understanding that our bodies, our experiences are ours to create.
Right.
Thank you. Mitra.
That we will own back the key to our divine particle that is inside of us, that each individual will own that key back. And when we will own that key back, we will not be dependent so much on the outside, to have an access to the harmony, to have an access to the love, to have an access to this cosmic celebration that is happening inside of us. When we own that key back, we can open the door when we want. And that is, from that the rest can bloom.
So thank you. Aho. Mark?
Aho.
Yes, I would say that I feel that some of our greatest challenges we face right now are also our greatest opportunities, as pertains to the systems and technologies we have in the world and how they are affecting us. And that we have the challenge of systems and technologies that are not in a resonance with the field and with what we know to be true in ourselves. And we can feel that we have detriment in our biology, we have detriment in nature, and that we have the knowledge now, understanding the field and the unified science and the harmonic science. It's a musical universe. We understand how nature creates harmony, that we can apply that into the shift of our systems and technologies to literally harmonize with earth and nature in a way that will engender, in some ways, the most profound, grounded aspect of bringing that harmonic nature into our human experience. And what I like to call consciously shifting from causing harm to causing harmony. And it's a choice. And so making that choice, using that harmonic science and applying it is one of the keys.
Thank you, Marshall. Manose.
Do you mind asking me a question one more time, please?
Yes, absolutely. If you could name one essential thing that humanity needs to thrive, what would it be?
Oh. Make music and cook for each other.
Love it. Love it.
Oh, if you grow your food and you cook in the home put lots of spices. Top of that, you put the main ingredients is love, of course. And feed to your beloved, and later you sing together, and you do same with your neighbors, and then multiply that all over the world. I think the problem will be solved in some ways. What do you think?
I completely agree with you. Thank you for sharing. Great. So this has been the end of our session of questions, and we're going to end this amazing, very dynamic and super inspirational session today. Darpan's going to drop us into the field. We're going to take a moment as a global community to just drop into the field a little bit. Darpan's going to lead us on meditation. And then after that, Manose will play some Bansuri for us and take us out of this amazing session. So thank you all for joining today. And we'll come back at the end and we'll do a roundup and a thank you. But Darpan, would you like to drop us into the field?
Thank you, Chris. I'd just like to invite everybody to take a breath in and let go with a small sigh. Another breath in and let go. And just let your eyes close gently and just drop in to your deep innermost. Become aware of your breath. Feel your connection to your chair. Listening to the sound of my voice. Relax and let go. We stand at the threshold of a great dawning. Something deep within life is changing. An era is ending. And at the very core of creation, something new is being born. We are awakening. From a long collective sleep, an in vitro dreaming deep within the womb of our Mother Earth, we are awakening to a great planetary birthing of a new consciousness in which we will assist in the ingression of higher dimensional frequencies and anchor them into the third dimensional plane. And in so doing, activate the manifestation of a heavenly earth. Embrace the one. Embrace the one. We are leaving behind old paradigms, outdated modalities, and embracing ourselves as part of the whole. Fractal expressions of a unified field of consciousness. Seek authority within. Follow your heart. Trust your intuition. Trust your inner guidance. Breathe into your heart. Experience being alive. Love yourself no matter what. Love all beings from the living heart. Embrace the one. Embrace the one. The cycle of being separate is closing. The old will fall away, just as the new will appear. It is a great step up in our evolution into multi-dimensional awareness. A new man will be born. One who can live in peace on the earth. One capable of moving through many worlds and dimensions. One who seeks to share energy and creativity in harmony and the spirit of cooperation. One who is aware that all things are connected as one living matrix of consciousness and pure intelligence. We are that. Embrace the one. Embrace the one. Embrace the one earth, one heart, one mind, one spirit. Embrace the one. Om Namo Narayanaya. 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 Narayana is the sustainer, the energy that drives us all, bring us together. Om Namo Narayana. 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 Om Namo Narayana.
Om Namo Narayana.
Thank you, Manose. Thank you for that beautiful music. So we've come to the end of our session today, the Thrive session, Co-Creating a New Future. And it's been such a pleasure and honor to be with you all here in this Zoom room, virtually from all across the world. And Foster and Kimberly, it's been such an honor. Your work is so inspirational and so needed for our planet at this time. And just, yeah, such profound, profound work. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and bring this amazing group together with us.
Great. Thank you so much for hosting us all, and thank you to everybody who's here and also participating from around the world. We really appreciate this connection.
Thank you.
You know, I was really touched by and shocked when Kerry and Chris said that they're in Canada now, they're not allowed to talk to their patients about the immune system. And I'm still kind of resonating with that. And that's it in a nutshell. We are the immune system. And the people who are so afraid that they have to try to control everything are trying to muzzle us as the immune system. So to everyone out there, if you haven't seen Thrive 2, I invite you to see it, share it, gift it to your friends, and then reclaim your sovereignty. Your sovereignty. Find your voice and say no to tyranny, and yes to freedom and our participation in the unified field.
Thank you, Foster. Yes, global community. Thank you for joining us today. And if you haven't seen the movie, we strongly, strongly recommend you do. It's a perfect one to watch over the holidays. thriveon.com, and you can sign up and watch it. And if you're also part of Uplift and part of our Uplift list, and we'll be sending emails out in the next days for you with links and everything that you can just join up and watch this movie. And please share it with your friends. It's a pivotal movie for our time. It's a pivotal piece of work for our time right now as a humanity on this earth. So please share it widely. Thank you. And thanks everyone. This is Chris Decker here from Uplift. And just want to thank you again for all of you, all of us, and wishing you all a very, very happy solstice and a wonderful Christmas and Hanukkah and all the wonderful things. The season's greetings to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Uplift.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.